Hello. In this lecture, we are going to learn about our memory. Our memory is one of the most fascinating phenomena of the human mind. Just think for a moment of an old house that you once lived in. If not an old house, think of your grandparents' house or some house where you have not been able to visit for a long time. The moment you think about it, you will remember a whole host of things. Maybe some images of the layout of the house, a balcony or a garden or some neighbors will immediately come to your mind. You may remember some events that happened while you were living there. Why? You may even remember some peculiar smells associated with that house. Even a moment's thought about the place is enough to reactivate a whole host of memories. The human mind is a tremendously vast storehouse of memories. Some of these memories actually last a lifetime. Take a photograph from your school, you will remember names of friends you haven't met for years together, or about whom you haven't even thought about in a long time. Conversely, if you meet a friend and they mention a classmate that you haven't met in a long time, you might remember that classmate's face. So, your memory might be of images or of sounds or names, words or numbers or smells or tastes or textures. A foreign language that we may have learned years ago might still be there in our memory, so that with very little rehearsal we are able to grasp it again. Activities like swimming or cycling, which we may have learnt as children, are usually never forgotten. Incidents that happened to us when we were small are retained in our mind, and their memories get re-triggered the moment something similar happens again. Isn't it amazing that our mind is capable of holding such a vast amount of information and for so long? Well, today we are going to learn about this fascinating phenomenon, memory. So, what is memory? Memory is an active system that receives information from the senses, puts that information into a usable form, organizes it as it stores it away, and then retrieves the information from storage. Memory is therefore defined as the process of encoding, storage and retrieval of what was learnt earlier. Now, there are three important words in this definition: encoding, storage and retrieval. Encoding. Now, encoding is the process of receiving information from the sensory input and putting it into a code that can be stored. Storage is the process of retaining or keeping the information which is coded in the mind. And retrieval. Retrieval is the process of gaining access to that material that has been stored in memory when it is needed. Let us understand these processes better with the help of an example. Let us imagine that a child is travelling with her father when they notice that something is wrong with the car. The father halts the vehicle, gets down and learns that one of the tires is punctured. He lifts the car with the help of a jack, removes the punctured tire and puts on a spare tire. His daughter is carefully watching him as he fixes the problem. Perhaps she has seen him do that on a number of occasions. Years later, when she encounters the same problem, she is able to fix it on her own. Now, in this example, as she observes her father fix the problem, the process of encoding is going on in her mind. In the years of her growing up, her mind has stored that encoded information. And when she herself encounters the problem, she is able to retrieve the information. If there is a problem in any of these processes, we would not be able to work well with our memory. Imagine that you are asked to help a student studying in 8th grade to calculate compound interest on a given principal amount, when the rate of interest and a time period for which the sum of money will earn interest is given, and you are finding it difficult to help this child. Now, your difficulty might be because of a fault in any one of the three processes of memory described earlier. 1. You may not have properly understood how to calculate compound interest yourself Here the problem is at the encoding stage. The second possibility is that you had understood the concept of compound interest, but you hadn't learnt and rehearsed the formula of calculation when you were younger. Now here the problem is at the storage step. Finally, you may have learnt and rehearsed the formula when you were younger, but it's been a number of years that you haven't used it, and so you are not able to recall it. Here the problem is at the retrieval stage. You have the information, but you are not able to recall it. To summarize, memory involves three stages: encoding, that is receiving the information and coding it; storage, that is holding it or keeping it for future use; and retrieval, that is gaining back access to the stored information when it is required. At this spot, let us take a little break. Please grab a pen and paper and solve the question that is shown on the screen. Let us look at the right answers. The first question was, a manager in a firm is not able to recall the name of a colleague with whom he had worked a few years ago. Now here, the problem is at the stage of retrieval, because the person completely knew the colleague with whom he was working. Now the second question was, a child is not able to recall the names of capitals of countries because she had not learnt and rehearsed them properly. Now here the problem is at the stage of storage, because the child knew the names of the countries and the capitals, but she had not learnt and rehearsed and stored it in her memory. Finally, a student is not able to solve numerical problems in physics because they have not understood the formulae. Now here the problem is at the encoding stage, because the material has not been encoded or it has not been understood in the first place at all. Many cases in courts of law have been complicated because people who are called in as eyewitnesses often have not so accurate memories of what they witnessed. Sometimes, because too much information had been coming in simultaneously, people may have difficulty in encoding or storing or retrieving the information. For instance, if they have witnessed an accident, they may have panicked watching the ghastly sight and so may not have clearly seen what happened. And also, because they get anxious while standing in the court of law as an eyewitness, they may forget a lot of details that they had witnessed back then. Our memory is thus quite often not a very accurate record of what we have experienced. Also, over time, some of our memories might become more and more distorted because we forget some of the information, or we may even exaggerate some impressions or feelings and thus add inaccurate elements to our memories. That is why in this module, we will be delving deeper into the processes of memory, the different types of memory. We will be discussing theories of how memory works and also how and why we forget things. Finally, we will learn about some interesting techniques that have been proven to be useful for improving memory. Thank you.